That's a lot of tunneling. Okay. And they are quite confident that, well, if confident's the word, that there already are, there's tunnels ready to be used for further attacks against Israel. Hamas is just waiting for the next opportunity to attack Israel. So you've got Hamas, you've got ISIS here spilling over into Hamas. You've got Hezbollah up here in the north. Now bear in mind that Hezbollah is controlled effectively by Iran. Okay, Lebanon is controlled by Iran. Hezbollah have just got a new president called Michael Aoun, who's a Christian but is in alliance with Hezbollah. Go figure. Okay, and he says if necessary we will engage in preemptive attacks against Israel if we feel it's important for us to do so. The word Christian there doesn't really have too much connotation to reality as what Christianity is. You have up here, you have two major groups. You've got ISIS, Yarmouk, they're called the Yarmouk Brigade or something like that, but also other groups here which are part of the rebel groups fighting Assad. And so you've got those both representing problems for Israel. There's sometimes stray mortars that come over here. But the major problem you've got is ISIS potentially here, a threat to Israel, and also Islamic rebel groups in this part of Syria as well, of course, much more spread out over Israel, Syria. And you've got Hezbollah here, you've got Hamas here, and you've got ISIS along here, surrounded by enemies. Yes?
Just two questions. One is up at in the Golan Heights, can tourists still go and have a look over the border?
Yeah.
And the other one is...
Yes, we can. We did a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and with regard to Gaza, and Egypt, the problem is Israel work with Egypt against...
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. In fact, they allow Egyptian military to come more into the whole Sinai border area than the peace treaty would allows them for, technically, in terms of the peace treaty. Israel has been cooperating with al-Sisi quite a lot in terms of dealing with the problem there. Now, the bottom line is that Egypt doesn't want the problems of Hamas and ISIS coming in here. And just recently, 4 more tunnelers in Hamas were killed when Egypt flooded a lot more tunnels in that area. So there was only 4, yeah, but there's about 12 or 13 so far have been killed in tunnels being collapsing or being flooded by Israel, who wouldn't say so, or certainly Egypt, who would say so. All right.
Are these still young boys that they're using?
We don't know how young they are. You know, these weren't. I mean, they have used young boys to build a lot of the tunnels earlier. Something like maybe up to 200 young kids, you know, have died from collapsing tunnels when they were developing their whole aggressive tunnel network over the last several years. The ones who have died are not, as far as we know, young boys, but they're certainly, basically young, Hamas military, and terrorists. Okay, so that's the sort of general picture, just to fill you in. And what I want to do is try to tell something of the story of how things are at the moment, based also on, the things that we picked up as I travelled just recently. So. I've mentioned about in my judgment, the appalling failure of the Australian government. I've got to say that to continue with its voting pattern and moving towards one of abstention on critical issues relating to Israel's security. So we need to continue to pray into the decision-making process of our diplomats, in that area. But there's no doubt that Hamas is preparing for the next round, and Fatah is preparing for war with Israel. There's just recently been a declaration. There's just been a vote so-called vote, it's all been rigged, of course, in the Palestinian Authority, PLO, and the continuation of Mahmoud Abbas, Yasser Arafat in the suit, basically has been secured for another 4 or 5 years as the leader of the Palestinian Authority. He managed to ensure that all his possible opponents in that quote vote were eliminated from the process. and he has declared that that the destruction of the Jewish state is part of their agenda. So, somewhere along the line, the nations of the world and the leaders of the nations have got to start hearing what these people are saying, okay, and not negotiate with them. The other thing too is in terms of Hezbollah up here, who've got somewhere between 120 to 150,000 rockets pointing at Israel as we speak. If there was another war, which is quite possible, Hezbollah at the moment are very much involved with the supporting Assad, together with Russia and Iran, the sort of Shiite or sort of that kind of axis across here in supporting Assad, and we don't know how that's going to pan out in the future, but certainly the situation in Syria is terrible. You can't say anything other than that. But the bottom line here is that Israel would likely, in accordance to their intelligence, be subject to something like 1,000 to 1,500 rockets a day. 1,000 to 1,500 rockets a day, with rockets that can extend the whole length of Israel, if there was a conflict with hundreds of thousands of casualties. So Israel is very much involved in watching what's going on up here. In actual fact, I was standing right on the border there just a little while ago, looking into Lebanese territory, and I'll show you some pictures afterwards that relate to that. Iran at the moment is smuggling weapons to Hezbollah on commercial flights. And of course, that was all made possible in part by the JCPOA, the recent Iran deal, which Obama is so proud about, which basically has released all kind of capacities to the Iranians, as well as finance, to be able to do things like that. These planes fly directly to the airport in Lebanon or Damascus, and from there the weapons are transferred on the ground to Hezbollah. And there a lot of weapons and ammunition and missile technology is transferred to Hezbollah in suitcases and put directly on commercial air flights. That's what's happening. And nobody's stopping them, of course, but Israeli intelligence has already picked that up. Israeli intelligence is incredible. The IDF is doing everything it can to fortify the Lebanese border against Hezbollah infiltration at the present time. I told you that Lebanon's elected a pro-Hezbollah president who says he will retake Israeli occupied land, as he calls it. And I want to show you some things now which I think will be helpful for you to gain an idea of really what's going on in a moment. But what I want to do is now encourage you with what Israel really is doing in terms of being a blessing to the nations. I talked about water. Have a look at this, which I think is incredible. I've got a lot here I want to show you. We'll just wait for that to fire up. But this is...
It's nothing short of a man-made...
Something's come out. I knew something would happen. Could you make sure that sticks into the top? Okay? Okay, that'll come out. Now, could we just square the whole thing up? It'll come. There we go. There we go. That's good. Thanks. Get that out of the way. Are we okay now? Ooh. Everything's happening today. That's okay. It's all right. It's okay. This is a bit of a tight squeeze here, I think, but we'll get there. There we are. Someone doesn't want you to see this. Okay. All right, let's go back to the beginning. Just have a look at this.
It's nothing short of a man-made miracle.
Turn the volume up.
Most of the water that leaves your tap today in Israel was in the sea this morning. This is Sorek, the largest seawater desalination plant of its kind in the whole world. And I am here for an exclusive peek at how a tiny country in the middle of the desert is leading the way in liberating humanity from dependence on rainfall. So here's how it works. First, the water is drawn from the Mediterranean through a pipeline way out at sea. It gets here by gravity alone into this well, dragging some fish, jellyfish, and even the odd baby shark with it too. Half of the plant is busy just cleaning the water before desalination, and pollution from dirty rivers in Israel and sewage from Gaza is testing these facilities' ability to function. Last year, the health ministry briefly shut it down over such concerns. But the water gets filtered and the sludge is treated and safely buried. After the water goes through its original cleaning, it gets pumped up here into this pool. The original mesh is able to filter out anything thicker than 5 square millimeters. But there's an entire ecosystem here of fish that manage somehow to sneak in. The water percolates through the base of this pool, 2 meters of a special filtering sand. And then after the water goes through that cleaning process, it all streams through here inside this building at a tremendous current into this pool. The water then gets pumped through increasingly higher pressures, reaching a pressure of 70 bar. That's like being subjected to 700 meters of water above your head. Finally passing through the final micronic filters, which make sure that any residual sand has been filtered out, and then it passes through to the real reverse osmosis stages. And here's where the magic happens. The water gets pumped down at incredible pressures to separate the clean water from the brine. The seawater gets pumped through this. These are special plastic sheets covered in fiberglass membranes that only let water molecules through. One tube carries the clean water to the rest of the plant, and another disposes of the brine back into the sea. And just before the end, they remove boron from the water, lest it hurt plant life and add minerals. To put this operation in perspective, Israel's annual municipal consumption of water, that's anything that's not industry or agriculture, is 750 million cubic meters. 80% of that is now desalinated. And of that, 150 million cubic meters are produced in Sorek alone. That's 20% of Israel's domestic consumption. In a country where rainfall in years of drought can be only 50% of the average, desalinated potable water is truly a lifeline. Now, it's drinking water and flows straight into the national water system. This was seawater only 40 minutes ago. Ilona Sanlifi for IBN.
Now, isn't that incredible? You know, the world doesn't know about that really. No one's going to make a big issue about that. But Israel just gets on doing that sort of stuff and exporting water where it's needed and exporting that sort of technology or its own people. They go and help in the nations of the world, being a blessing to all the families of the earth. I could show you a lot more about that one, but it's just incredible. Do you remember I showed you the story last time I was here of a little Syrian girl who was 5 years old, okay? And she was discovered, she had injuries because of fighting between competing forces within Syria, and they sent people out to smuggle. She came in to be treated in Syrian hospitals, as many, so Israeli hospitals, as many Syrians are. I passed by the hospital up in the north of Israel just recently, and the Ziv hospital in Safat, and she was discovered as she was being treated that she had cancer, a rare form of cancer, and could only be treated successfully, if at all, of course, by having a bone marrow transplant from someone of her family, okay? So they sent spies into Israel to smuggle a bone marrow transplant family member who could provide that transplant, and she was treated. And this is the outcome a few months later. Fully healed. They know how to eat in Israel too. Okay. I showed that because, you know, that was the outcome of treating her, but treating her by bringing in a relative smuggled in from Syria. And she'll be taken back, and basically the Syrians really can't do much about that unless they are following closely in each individual situation. Israel is doing whatever it can to treat people, even those who are her enemies. In fact, whoops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. Assad, the leader of Syria, what a terrible person he is, says that Israel is still Syria's only enemy. Regards her very much. Israel is still at basically technically at war with Israel. There's no peace treaty. But nevertheless, just here, this guy, who I met recently at Bridges for Peace meetings in last May, this is what he is explaining regarding the IDF its treatment of over 1,500 injured Syrians. Incredible. Technically enemies.
Nearly 250,000 Syrians have been killed in the past 4 years. While the war was largely ignored by the world till the recent refugee crisis, one country has been saving the lives of thousands of wounded Syrians. Dr. Tarif Bader is the Deputy Surgeon General of Israel's Defense Forces. He recently led the Israeli Defense Forces humanitarian mission to Nepal.
I think it's the same humanitarian mission that we are doing all over the world, with one difference. The major difference is that we are talking about extending a helping hand over a hostile border. We saw the people suffering there. At the beginning it was very far away from Israel, that we cannot go and reach the towns in Syria, but when we saw that they are just near the border and they can reach us to get help, we decided to be there as it was supposed from us. The state of Israel until now has treated more than 1,500 Syrians in Israel. Part of them were treated in the military field hospital in the Golan Heights, and part of them were treated here in the hospitals in the northern part of Israel. All of them are Syrians. For us, it doesn't matter if they are fighters or not. They are Syrians. All of them were treated here, and all of them could be discharged back. Were discharged back to Syria. In my opinion, it's a humanitarian mission. So there are people, there are suffering people, they are our neighbors, even though the relationship between Israel and Syria are not a state of peace. But again, we saw people who are suffering, and we are helping the people there.
The state of Israel continues to save the lives of thousands of injured Syrians, while many in the Arab world turn a blind eye. For the Rebel Down Media, I'm Miguel Hecht.
Again, I've got to say, it seems as though the world doesn't want to know. And if this sort of stuff was in the media at all, there'd be some kind of slant on it, which was of an anti-Israeli slant, you can be sure. It's incredible. There are all kinds of things which Israel is doing. For example, a drone to save human life and delivering medicine to remote areas. Wow. Okay? It's called Zipline.
It is a very difficult country in terms of topography, and many areas are hard to reach.
Traversing that terrain to get to a rural village can take hours, even though it's a very short distance.
Today, if a mother is giving birth and suffers from postpartum hemorrhaging, her life is dependent on getting a blood transfusion.
There are many different types of blood types. They have a limited shelf life, and the challenge is when you need blood, you need it immediately, but it is unpredictable which geography that will occur in.
Hospitals that are in more remote areas can have a very hard time getting enough reliably supplied blood.
The time to order and get the supplies by truck is just too late.
The
It is a team of Rwandese who came together with Zipline to groom the project and to make it happen in Rwanda.
Their ultimate vision is to put each and every one of those 11 million citizens within a 15 to 35-minute delivery of any essential medical product that they could need. And that's a revolutionary idea for any country in the world.
The use of drones to deliver life-saving medical products can overcome the lack of road infrastructure. We need to let our imagination soar.
When you have a commodity, rare in supply, that might be an unusual blood type or something like a rabies vaccine, and you need it immediately, the idea that we could use a drone to be able to deliver this to the country is absolutely brilliant. There's nothing else that could do that in that way.
It is like we will no longer go around the hills, but we fly over the hills.
We pulled together a team from places like Boeing, SpaceX, Google, Lockheed Martin, and it's an honor for Zipline to partner with the government of Rwanda.
We place a hub next to an existing medical warehouse, and it instantly enables that warehouse to make hundreds of deliveries per day to any location within range.
The doctor sends us their order by text, by phone call, whatever's convenient.
Somebody identifies the need and then prepares the package, puts it on the drone.
And then we take that vehicle and we put it through pre-flight tests. It's launched, it flies automatically out to the clinic.
The path has been already calculated, it's in the computer.
And then they'll receive a text message saying, Zip is 2 minutes away, please walk outside.
It drops the packet. Somebody goes and collects it.
It turns around, it flies home, and then we get it ready for the next delivery.
Our service not only makes it possible, but also affordable for countries to deliver reliable access to essential medicines for all of their citizens.
What you're looking forward to see here is saving lives.
Okay, isn't that incredible? Again, you didn't know about that? And no one's going to tell you about that, except people like me. But seriously, I could show you, I could spend all day showing you some of these things, seriously, because I think we need to be aware. That's just an illustration. But what an illustration? Did you have a question?
How do they land? They just land in open paddocks and...
Sorry, the light, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, we saw them.
Sorry, what was that?
Once they drop the...
They go straight back again.
Don't know how do they land.
They don't, well, when they get back, where exactly they land, somewhere on some paddock or something like that, they're shot off when they go off on a preordained sort of target, which is computerized. They drop it off, and then they're on the. Oh, absolutely, yeah. The drone goes back again. Absolutely. Well, I don't know. I guess so, quite possibly. You know. It has skids at the bottom, which enables it to land. Yeah. Okay, well, you're asking me questions I don't know the detail of, but I think the principle is so clear. They'd look after those details for sure, you know. So I could show dozens of those, but we're not going to do that. What I want to do is inspire you some more in some other ways. Because I want you to be inspired, okay, in the midst of all the stuff that's happening. For example, there was a girl called Sarah Littman, whose father and brother were killed in a terrorist attack just before she was to be married, and yet she believed it was right to, you know, just to go ahead with a wedding in the midst of the trauma and the pain of what they were going through as a family, and invited Israel to come to her wedding. And I thought this particular story is an incredible story 2 weeks after her father and brother were killed.
4 days before our wedding, my father and brother were killed by terrorists. We postponed our wedding so that we could see Chiva.
It was 4 days before, yeah.
when we got up from the Shiva, we decided to invite the entire nation of Israel to our wedding. We were determined, together with all of Israel, to spread a great light of joy, of giving and love. And they came in the thousands from all over Israel, from all walks of life. We were lifted up in the time of our need. We were inspired by the people of Israel.
Hear me calling, come back to me now. I can hear my home man calling me, hear my home man calling, come back to me now. I can hear my mama calling me, hear my mama calling, come back.
And this is the incredible thing about the Jewish people, about Israel in times of tragedy. They pull together like no other people I could imagine could, because they have this deep sense of being a people, of belonging. Yeah? Sorry?
Yes, she did, yes.
Christine Sakakibara. Yeah. That's right. She shared about that, yeah. And that's exactly what you see again and again and again. It pulls the people together, and they are strong together. The Jewish people are a people, and they will always be a people. They have plenty of arguments with each other and all sorts of things, but when the crunch comes, they stand together. There's some other illustrations of what I think are just special. For example, an 18-year-old Israeli who suffers from cerebral palsy becomes a member of the IDF. I mean, just incredible the way they care for those in need.